Okay, welcome to Afternoon Art Club for first through third graders. I am Miss Kim, and I am the Curator of Education at the Florence County Museum. I'm excited to start a new project for the month of February with you today. And this month, we are going to be working with sculpture. Now, if you participated in January's Afternoon Art Club, we made a little fish sculpture. But this month, and we made that one out of clay, but this month we're going to be making a sculpture with paper. So I'm going to show you an example of a paper sculpture that I created, and then we're going to work together this month to create a sculpture ourselves. So here's an example of the crazy paper sculpture that I made. And we are going to work together for you to make your own unique paper sculpture. Now, next time we meet, we're going to do something special that we haven't done together in Afternoon Art Club yet. So we have a new sculptural exhibition opening here at the museum with some really cool sculptures that I think you guys would love to see. And so next time, when we log in on Zoom, I am going to be in our special exhibit gallery, and I'm going to show you some sculptures that are in the museum live next time. So we'll be doing that next class. Now, today, I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop with you so that you can see what's going on my desktop and we can get started making our sculptures. Remember that if you have questions, go ahead and throw those into the chat box. I'll keep the chat box up all the time, and I will be watching for your questions. So let me get my screen up here. All right, hold on one second and I will make it so you can see what I'm doing. Hopefully this works well today. All right, so let me get this situated for us. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to zoom in for us here a little so you can see real clearly. Move this back some. All right. Hold on 1 second. Just want to adjust it a little bit. There we go. All right, that's a little better. Okay, guys, give me 1 second. Just want to get this adjusted really well. Okay, good deal. I'm going to lock my focus here. And here we go. All right, so this is an example of a paper sculpture that I've made, and you'll notice that there are lots of crazy paper things going on here. We're going to talk a little bit about how to build a paper sculpture kind of like this. Yours can look completely different than mine, and that's totally fine. But we're going to work together to build a paper sculpture today. So I am going to make sure I have my chat box pulled up for us here. Give me 1 second on that. It's always difficult to make sure I have everything so I can see it on the screen. Okay, wonderful. Now let's get started working on our own paper sculptures. So last month when we started making clay sculptures, we talked a little bit about sculptures, but I want to tell you a little bit about what makes something a sculpture versus just a flat piece of artwork. So most of the time, if we do some art on a piece of paper, it's what we call two-dimensional. That means that it has height, that it's tall, and it has width, it's wide, but it doesn't have depth. It's not very deep. It doesn't go back into space. But sculptures are what we call three-dimensional. So this little sculpture has height, it's tall, it has some height to it. It has width, side to side. We could measure side to side and get a width. But it also has depth. It also goes back into space. It has height and width and depth. So we want to use paper, something that's flat and two-dimensional, and turn it into something three-dimensional. So that's kind of a challenge. We've got to figure out how to work together to take something that's flat and two-dimensional and make it three-dimensional. So let's get started with that. So what you're going to need to do this project, let me show you the tools and materials you're going to need today. You're going to need some colored construction paper. Now, if you got a kit from us here at the museum, then you have a stack of colored construction paper in your kit. And you're going to need at least 6 different pieces, 6 pieces or 6 different colors of construction paper. Now, if you're doing this at home and you only have 5 different colors because you're supplying your own supplies, then that'll work fine. But 6, 7, or 8 pieces work best. So you may want to try to find 6 different colors or 7 different colors or 8 different colors to work with. And it's going to be up to you how many pieces you use. You're also going to need a glue stick or some white glue. So if you got a kit from us at the museum, you have a glue stick just like this in your kit. But if you're using supplies from home, then like Elmer's white school glue will work just fine for this, and any glue stick you have will work fine. You're going to need a pair of scissors, and you're going to need a pencil or a pen or a marker. We're not actually going to be drawing with this today. We're going to use this pencil or marker or whatever you can find to curl your paper up on to help make it 3-dimensional. So you're going to need something small and round like a pencil, or maybe you have a marker, or I have this ink pen here that would work well. So whatever you have available that you could use. I just have a pencil nearby, and I know that you guys that picked up a kit from the museum had a pencil in your kit. So, so those things you're definitely going to need. Now, you're also going to need probably 1 or 2 sheets of white paper. And I'm going to show you, we're going to do some practicing on white paper before we start working with our colored paper, just to make sure that you guys have those techniques down really well before you work on your final sculpture. So a couple of sheets of white paper will be very useful. I'm going to set those to the side for right now. Now, we're going to go ahead, and I've already done some of these for myself with some of my colored papers. We are going to cut some strips of paper that are going to become our sculpture. And we're going to go ahead and put some glue on those. And those are going to be drying while we learn about some of the different sculptural techniques that we can use to create a 3-dimensional sculpture out of 2-dimensional paper. So let me show you how to do that. Now, you guys might not have enough time while I'm talking to do all of your paper. And if you don't, that is totally fine. Just make sure that you're paying attention to what I'm saying so that you can finish up your sculpture over the next couple of weeks before we meet next time. So you don't have to go as fast as I'm going. You don't have to work right alongside me. I'm really just showing you how to do it so that you will be able to do it on your own. So this part right here, it may actually take you a little bit longer than it takes me because I've already done some of it ahead of time. All right, so you're going to want to get one of your sheets of construction paper. Now, if you guys are using your own construction paper from home, this is actually a half sheet of paper. So this is a full sheet of white paper. This is a half sheet of construction paper. So if you're using it from the kit, it's already the right size. If you're using construction paper you have at home, you're going to need to cut it in half to start with. And you can actually follow the directions I'm about to give to do that. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take our construction paper and we're going to fold it in half. And everybody can do this no matter what size your construction paper is. You're going to take your paper and you're going to fold it in half. Now here's how I'm doing it. I'm going to take this long edge and I'm going to fold it over to this long edge and try to match up my corners. So I really want to match them up well. Match up my corners. Match up my corners. And once I have them matched up, I'm going to hold the construction paper down and I'm going to crease that. So now I folded it in half. You see that? Now, if you were working with a full piece of construction paper that was not already cut in half, then you would take the 2 short edges and fold those in half. And there's your half sheet. And then you could take the long edge and fold it over like that. Okay, so this is just if you're using a full sheet. But if you're using a half sheet, long edge, fold it over and crease, okay? So I want to do this with all the pieces of paper that I'm going to use for my sculpture. So if you've chosen 6 colors to use or 7 colors to use or even 8 colors to use, you want to do this to each one of the colors you've chosen to use for your sculpture. So I'm just going to use 2 as an example today and then switch over to my pile that I've already done. So go ahead and fold all of the papers that you're going to be using in your sculpture. You're going to go ahead and fold them in half, just the same way. Fold it over, match the corners, make a crease. And then you should have a stack of folded papers once you've done that with all 6, 7, or 8 of your pieces of paper. Now, like I said, you're probably still folding, and that's just fine. You may want to pause folding and follow along with me on this, just so that you know how to do it. And then you can go back to folding in a little while. All right, so my folded papers now have a line right down the middle of them. It's a crease. You see my line? All right, now I'm going to take my scissors and slowly and carefully, I'm going to cut down that line. Now you want to go carefully and slowly, as straight as you can, down that line. Now, if you are not a very precise cutter, if you're not cutting very precisely with your scissors, this is a great opportunity to practice because you're going to have to cut all those papers you folded in half. So this is a great opportunity to practice your cutting skills and to go nice and slow and try to stay on that folded line. See, I'm going nice and slow. I'm not trying to go too fast. And now I have cut them into strips. I have 2 strips of red and 2 strips of purple because I cut them in half. Okay? So you guys can keep working on that on your paper. And again, you should have chosen either 6, 7, or 8 colors to work with on this sculpture. And you're actually going to only need 1 strip of each color. These extra strips I'm going to set to the side because maybe I'll want to make a second paper sculpture later, and so I'll have some extra strips of paper. Or maybe I want to use these extra strips of paper for a totally different art project later. So I'm going to save these strips of paper for later and only keep 1 of each of the colors. So I'm just setting these off to the side. I'm not throwing them away. I'm saving them for later. And here is my stack of colors. Now, I want to arrange my colors. Let's see how many I have. Can't remember if I had 6, 7, or 8. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is what I chose. Now, if I wanted to add an 8th one in there, I could put it right here. But I just want to line them up and take a look at how all the colors look together. If I don't like the way, for example, that this yellow and blue look together, then I could change the order of them. I could put this blue right in here and change that around a little bit and then step back and look at it and see if I like the way that all those colors work together. So I actually did like the way, I think I want to move my blue in there. That looks nice. Okay, so once you get your papers in an order that you like them, I like the green, then the pink, then the blue, then the yellow, then red, then white, then orange, then purple. So I like the way those colors look, and I'm going to put them back in a stack, just like this. Now, you guys are probably still working on folding and cutting, and that's just fine. I just want to make sure that you're watching so that you know what to do next. So all my papers are in a stack, and my next step is going to be to kind of glue them together. So let's take a break. If you guys are cutting right now, if you will pause that for just a moment so that you can see how I'm going to do this next step so that you'll know what to do. All right, for us to glue our papers, we want to put a stripe of glue right down the center. Now, I want to know where the center is on my paper. So watch this. Make sure you're watching, guys. I'm going to take my strip of paper and I'm going to fold one of the short sides over to the other short side. And I'm just going to kind of make a little crease right in the middle. Now, I'm not pushing that crease all the way to the edges like that. I'm just making it in the middle. And that kind of shows me where the center is. Do you see that? Can everybody see where the center of this purple paper is? All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my glue stick, my handy dandy glue stick, and I'm going to just put a stripe of glue all the way down that center line, this way. You see that? You watching? You watching? Make sure you're watching. All right, I have a stripe of glue. And now I am going to glue that to my orange paper. But before I do, I want to go ahead and make a little crease on my orange paper so I'll know where the middle of that one is. Okay? So now I'm just going to line up my papers. Line up my papers. Try to line the edges up so that they match. And I'm going to push them together just in the middle where that stripe of glue is. Okay? Now I did make a little crease in my orange one, so I know where the center is still. So before I do this, I'm going to go ahead and crease my white one. And if you wanted to go ahead and crease all of them ahead of time, you can. It's up to you. So I know where the center is. The center line's right here. And I'm going to make a stripe of glue. Stripe of glue, just like that. And I'm going to stack my white one exactly on top. I'm going to line up the corners. All four corners, line them up, and then rub it together. Okay? And I'm just going to keep going with this, just like this. I'm going to mark my center line with a little crease. I'm going to put some glue right in the center. And then I'm going to stack this on top. And I'm going to do this for my entire stack of paper. So I had 7 sheets of paper here. I had 7 sheets. And actually, I think I added my 8th. So now I think I have 8 pieces of paper. And if you get confused where the middle is, you can kind of find that little crease you made. Just make a crease down the center. And then line up your next piece. I only have a few more pieces left. You want to try to make sure all those edges line up. Press it down. Okay. This takes a little while. So if you start on this today and then you don't finish getting them all glued together today, that's okay. You've got 2 weeks to finish this sculpture, so you don't have to do it all at once. And this video will be available starting tomorrow. So if you need to come back and watch the video again, then you'll be able to do that. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat box, so I think everybody is with me still. Remember, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box. And remember, you're not in a hurry. I'm going fast just for the video, but you'll have 2 whole weeks to work on this. Okay, this is my last paper. Look at that. This is my green one, is my very last one. I'm going to add one more little stripe of glue here. And I'm going to put my green right on top. I don't need any more glue, thank goodness. And now I have a stack of papers that are all glued together down the center, but that the edges are still loose. You see that? It's kind of like having an open book. We have pages on this side that are open, pages on this side that are open, but there's a stripe of glue holding all the papers together. See, they're not falling apart. Okay, now I need to let this dry before I can start turning this into a sculpture. So I'm going to set this over to the side, just right over here. And I'm going to ask you guys to do the same, because now we're at a part where we can follow along together. So go ahead, even if you're not to this part yet, go ahead and set your colored paper to the side for a few minutes. And let's practice some techniques that we're going to need for our paper sculptures. So you're gonna need a sheet of white paper. Go ahead and grab a sheet of white paper. And we're gonna do this all together. So you stay with me. You can come back to your colored paper and work on that. So if you're still working on your colored paper, that's totally fine. Just set it to the side for right now, and you can come back and finish that up in a few minutes. Now, go ahead and take your sheet of white paper, and we are gonna fold it in half. So we're gonna take this shorter side and fold it in half like this. Just crease it, give it a good crease. We've got just a little more cutting to do on this one. More practice cutting, which is good. It's good to practice. The more you practice cutting in straight lines and cutting slowly and carefully, the better you get at it. All right, so we have folded this paper in half. Now we're gonna fold it in half one more time so that we folded it into a paper, like some paper strips, kind of like we did before. See that? And if we open it up, we have 3 lines, one here, and one here. And we're gonna cut on those lines to get 4 strips of white paper. Now we're using the white paper for this because we don't want to waste our colored construction paper practicing. So we are just gonna use our white paper for this, for our practice. Okay, so there's one of my strips. I'm just cutting on these folded lines. Cutting on those folded lines. Oops. Just go nice and slow. If you get off track a little bit, then just go slow and try to get right back on your fold. Okay, there's 2. Now these 2 are still connected. I'm going to cut down that fold. Just take your time. You're not in a big hurry. All right. And so you should have 4 pieces of white paper. Now, with each of these pieces of white paper, we're going to learn 4 different ways to make a flat paper 3-dimensional. So we're going to learn 4 ways to take our flat pieces of paper and make them have height and width and depth, okay? So let's get started. Each one of these 4 pieces of paper is going to be a different method that we practice. So I'm just going to push 3 pieces to the side. And even if you're not done cutting all 4, just go ahead and grab one of your pieces of white paper, one of your strips of white paper. Okay, and now the first thing we're going to do is fold the paper to make it 3-dimensional. So one way to make paper 3-dimensional is by making folds. This blue sheet of paper and this green piece of paper were folded to make them 3-dimensional. And we're going to use a special kind of fold called an accordion fold. Have you ever heard of that before? Accordion fold. So let's see how to do it. It's really easy. You actually might have done this before, but let me show you how. We're going to take our strip of paper and I'm going to lay it the long way. So it's going up and down. I'm laying it the tall, vertical way. And I'm going to take my paper and I'm just going to fold a tab of paper up, just about that much. You don't have to measure it. You don't have to be exact. Just fold a little bit up like that. Okay, now I just took it and I folded a little bit up and I gave it a crease. Okay, now watch me carefully. Here's what we're going to do next to make an accordion fold. We're going to take our paper and flip it over. So you can kind of see that fold is still down here, but it's folded onto the back now. The fold is on the back. So I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to try to fold it again just to where the other side was folded to. So about the same size. So I have now this little bit that's sticking up. You can see I've got 2 folds. They kind of look like the letter Z right there, right? So it looks something like that. Now let's flip it over again. And all we're going to do is that. We're just going to keep flipping it and folding it. We'll fold it again, even with the papers we folded already, and give it a crease. Now we're getting even more of an accordion. We're going to flip it and fold it up again, about the same size. Crease it. Do it again, flip it, fold it up, and crease it. We're just going to keep doing that all the way down. Flip it, fold it up, and give it a crease. Now, if you get to the end and you have this little extra bit, oh, good job. I see some great accordion folds. You guys are holding them up for me. Awesome. You guys are sculpture masters. Great job. Now, if you get to the end and you have this extra little bit, there's a couple of things you could do. You could just fold that over like that. Just have a little small fold, but you could also just cut that off if you wanted, if you had some extra. Now, if you guesstimated really well and you don't have this bit of extra, then that's okay, but you can cut it off if you want to. But now we have a piece of paper that has height, it's tall, it has width, it's wide, and it has depth. It goes back into space. So we have started to make our paper three-dimensional. So folding is one way that you can do that. And these folds are so fun. If you wanted to make smaller folds, like you could have made these folds even really smaller. I made mine a little bit wide. But you can make your folds smaller or wider to give a different look. So folding is one way to make paper, flat paper, three-dimensional. Okay, I'm going to set that one to the side because we're done with folding. We know how to fold now. Let's get another strip of paper and learn a new way to make our paper three-dimensional. I'm going to use a pencil for this, but any kind of round, skinny kind of round object you have will work. I'm going to curl my paper. So here's what I'm going to do. Watch me carefully. I'm going to get the edge of my paper and I'm going to roll it up over the top of my pencil and just kind of hold it with my fingers there. And I'm going to start rolling. And once you get it started, it's pretty easy to do. You just roll it up, all the way to the end. Roll. All right. We've rolled it all the way to the end. And we can slide our pencil out. And look at that. We have a curly, rolled piece of paper. A curly piece of paper. There you go. Exactly. And it can go this way. It's interesting this way. Or it's kind of cool to look at this way too, isn't it? So we have a curly piece of paper. We can make it go this way, or we can make it look like a spiral this way. But either way, it has height. It's got height, it's tall. It's got width, it's wide, and it has depth. It goes back into space. So we have something three-dimensional now with this piece of paper. So far we've done some folds and we've done some curls. Let's get a new piece of paper. Get my trash out of the way. And this time we're going to need a glue stick. So get your glue stick or your glue or whatever you're using to glue with. All right. So I've got a piece of paper and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my glue stick and I am going to, how do I want to do this? I'm going to put a little bit of glue right here on the end. Just like that. And I'm going to take this end of my paper and I'm just going to stick it into that glue. I'm just going to line up my edges and stick it into the glue. And I made a loop. Look at that. It's a little loop of paper. That's a little paper loop. Okay. Now, there are lots of ways to make paper loops. We could do it by putting some glue kind of in the middle, like that. And we could do a little loop this way, and then a little loop in this way. And now we have kind of a double loop. Look at that. And you could even fold that double loop to make it look like a heart. Look at that. So you can make loops with glue just by putting some glue on your paper and folding it over, but we're not creasing it. You notice I didn't put a crease in this side of the paper. I just left it loopy like that. And it creates really beautiful curved lines. And again, now our paper has height. Both of these have height. They have width and they have depth. They go back into space. So now we have folded, we have curled, we have looped, and now the last one, which is one of my favorites, you're gonna need your scissors for. And here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take our piece of paper, our strip of paper, and fold it in half. Just like that. And we are gonna crease it this time. Okay, so we have our paper folded in half. Now, I want you to find where the fold is. Find where the fold is, the edge with the fold. We don't want to cut that edge, so kind of keep an eye on where your fold is. The side with the two loose pieces right here is what we want to cut. Now watch what I do. I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to cut from the loose ends down here up to close to where the fold is, but I'm not cutting all the way. Look, I'm leaving some space where the fold is. I'm not cutting all the way. So these papers are still attached. And I'm just cutting little tiny strips. You can cut them really close together and make really skinny strips, or you can cut them kind of far apart and make really thick ones. But this creates a fringe, a little fringy edge. There we go. Look at that. Now we have this kind of fun fringy edge. Now we could open this up because remember it's folded in half. So we could open it up and have two fringy edges. We could even roll that up. If we took this and used our pencil and kind of rolled that up, now we have sort of a fringy roll. Or, watch this. We can take our fringes and we can fold them a little bit. We can put a fold in them, and that makes them even more three-dimensional looking. And you can see that on my sculpture right here. See, I took my little fringes and I folded them opposite directions, and that made them even more three-dimensional. See that? So far, these are our 4 techniques. These are the 4 techniques we're going to be using to make our sculpture. Folding, curling, looping, and fringing. These are our 4 techniques that we're going to be using. So hopefully you have a little bit of practice now. And I want to show you before we are finished today. We've got a few more minutes. I'm going to talk for just about 3 more minutes. Oh, look at great fringes, guys. Good job. All right. So I'm going to move my practice ones out of the way, and I want to show you an example of what to do. Now, you probably are not done with this part yet. You're probably not ready to do this. Your stack of paper is probably not cut all the way yet, and your glue is probably not dry yet. I normally would let my glue dry a little bit longer than this, but I want to show you what to do with this over the next 2 weeks. So watch closely, guys. Here's the rules. When you're working on your sculpture, we want your sculpture to be what we call symmetrical. Do you know what that means? Symmetrical. That's kind of a big word. That means that it's exactly the same on the right side as on the left side. So take a look at the screen. Look up at my sculpture. You'll notice that on both sides, on the right side and on the left side, my orange papers are curled and my white papers are looped and my blue papers are folded. My yellow papers are curled. My pink papers are fringed, and my green papers are folded. So it's the same on the left as on the right. We call that symmetrical. So let me show you how we do it. Here's what we do. When you're working with your sculpture, you're going to use one piece of paper at a time. Hold on just a second. If you have a question, I can see some questions, but hang tight for me, okay, for just a minute. And I promise I'll answer it. When you're working on this, and you can just watch me right now. You don't have to try to follow along right this second. Just watch me. When you are making your sculpture, whatever you do to the green side, the green piece of paper, you need to do the same thing on the left as you do on the right. So let's say that I want to fold my green paper. Okay, I decided I want to fold. So I am going to fold it up. And it's a little tricky. I'm going to flip it over, but I got to hold these out of the way. And because I just want to fold my green paper. So I'm going to flip it. And I'm going to flip it. And I'm going to flip it. And it's pretty tricky for me to fold it in there. So I'm going to leave it like that. Okay. So now I've folded on the left side. And I want to do the same thing on the right side. So I'm going to match it. I'm going to match with the green what I do on the left and on the right. I'm going to flip it. Flip it. Hang tight, guys, for me. I'm going to flip it. And last one. All right. So now it's the same on both sides. You see that? All right. Now watch me one more time, because this is how you're going to make your sculpture work. Every time. Now, next is my pink paper. You with me on that? Next is my pink paper. What I do with my pink paper on the left and on the right has to be the same. So if I want to curl my pink paper, I'm going to curl that up. Curl, curl, curl. I'm going to curl it on this side. You see how I curled it around my pencil? Move my pencil out of the way. Now that piece is curly. You can see that. And I want to do the same thing on the other pink side. So just remember that whatever you do to your papers has to be the same on both sides. See how it's the same on the green as it is on both sides, and it's the same pink on both sides. And I'm just going to keep going. I could start adding on my purple if I wanted to do some folding with that and make it go the other direction. If you take a look at this one, for example, you can see how it's curled up here, but curled down on this one. So your job this week is to turn your stack of paper. For each sheet of paper, do one of the 4 techniques that we have learned, okay? So, hold on just a second for me, guys. Okay, so you're going to want to do the exact same thing that I've just done. Choose one of the 4 techniques. So for my blue paper, I'm either going to fold it, or curl it, or loop it, or fringe, okay? So I'm going to do one of those to the side. So on the blue, I might decide I want to do a fringe.
Nice.
I might decide that I want to do a fringe. Hold on, guys. Okay. And I'm going to just cut on the blue side here. Just like that. Just like this. See, I'm just cutting up the blue side. Like that. And then on this blue side, I'd do the same exact thing. I would cut on that blue side in the same exact way. Okay? So, just make sure that what you do to the color that you're working on, you do the same thing on both sides. Now, it would be really fun if you maybe curled your fringe around your pencil, or you could fold your fringe. Whatever you can think of to make it three-dimensional is going to be amazing. When you're finished, your three-dimensional sculpture will look very different from everyone else's because you've probably chosen different colors than they've chosen. You have probably chosen different techniques than they've chosen. So you can kind of see how mine is turning out so far. And I just need to keep going. I'd go on to my yellow next, or maybe I want to start with my purple next. But just remember, whatever you do to one side, you do the same thing to the other side to start building your sculpture until you're all the way through all your pieces of paper, just like I am here. Okay, now I want to show you one more thing that I've done with my finished sculpture that you can, well, actually, I think I'm going to save that for next time when I see your finished sculptures next time. So your job over the next 2 weeks is to build your sculpture. Take all those strips of paper, glue them together, then use the techniques that we've learned, either folding or curling or looping or fringing to create your sculpture. Now, I do want to show you how to do the looping really quick here. I lost my glue stick. I don't know where it went. That's okay. I got another one. All right. If you want to do a loop, for example, let's say I want my purple papers to be a loop. I can just put a little bit of glue right on my paper and then fold that in to create the loop. On both sides, though, remember, whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. And you might have to hold it for a minute. You can kind of push those up. So now I've shown you how to do, I could start on my orange next or my yellow next, but whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. And that's the trick with this symmetrical paper sculpture. Now I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And before I give you the opportunity to unmute and ask questions, which I'm getting ready to, I just want to say that next time we meet together, we are going to be taking a look at your sculptures and seeing what you guys have created. We're also going to be taking a walk through our gallery space to look at the new exhibition of sculptures by an artist named Annie Lemansky. And she create some really amazing animal sculptures that I think you guys will really love seeing. So I'll show that to you next class, and you work on your sculptures. I can't wait to see what you create, and I will see you next time. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then if you have questions, you'll be able to answer them. So hang tight for me.